that's growing phenomenally. So it's really great. Well done for all of that which has been put together. I think it's a great venture, and as I often say, it's a very difficult season for us. So to have these kind of things, it's really helpful. Today I'm speaking about the aspect of networking and partnering. And for some people, this comes easier for some. For others, perhaps not that easy. It just depends if you. I think the very big important factor is confidence. But at the end of the day, it is important aspects to grow your business, to involve your staff, and to be a part of the wider context. Like a good example is the WhatsApp group is a very good way of network building and getting to know one another and having a look at the different projects. I must say I was quite. I'm not part of the Silver guys, but I was quite blown away by that house that sunk like that. So I'm quite interested to find out why. So the Silver guys have got a very interesting environment, I must say. Some very strange things that happen. So just coming back to it, let's have a look at the first one, networking. So
Well,
the aspect of networking is building relationships with
for
those
my
in particular in your industry. So it would be important to stretch oneself
for
and
grade
get
one,
to.
but I need to pick up a
You
form
guys
because
can hear me.
The teacher is.
I don't
she
know.
said that
Anyways, it's important to get to
because I was here
meetings and
yesterday.
environments where you can build with others that are in your industry. And this is networking, and it is a stretch, especially when you're starting out and you're young. You gotta be bold and talk to people, find out what they're doing, and put your name out there and say this is what you're involved in. And this process is very important. Then I feel from networking, one transitions into partnering. And partnering is when you actually begin to work with someone, with another company. And of course, it's got to be around trust. And you've got to have built that trust and to be able to work together and partner. And so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, but it's important that we get to that we don't live in isolation, or especially in leadership. If you're leading a group of people or a team, and if you don't stretch out to partner with others and network with others, you find you could fall behind. And so that would be very important in one's leadership. And then in this partnership, to involve your staff, to connect your staff to others that perhaps are doing even better than what you are doing, and to expose them to other situations. And then overall, your, can I say, your intellectual property grows, your skills grow because you're now working with others. And just to end off an example of my situation is I began to involve myself with electrical engineering forums, the AMEU, which you guys probably be aware of. And I found this was very helpful. And then it also the essay, i.e. the iPad, which I'm thoroughly enjoying being a part of you guys. And so, you begin to learn, you begin to grow, and you involve others. And this I found very rewarding. And I began to get inputs from others on other situations, and then all in all one grows. So to end off, I have this saying that I just keep before me is the purpose of networking should be for the benefit of others. When we network with others, we open up doors for people. And so we've got to just be careful when we're networking that, yes, there's a personal bias, but we got to, in leadership, we got to see it for the improvement of those that we are leading. So with ECSA, I think it's a very important thing to, with those new graduates, those young graduates, to actually link them to others, because they could be doing projects that is limited. You might find that that's not sufficient, the work that they're doing for you in what you're leading them into. And so if you open them up to other things and other situations, they can get other projects to complement their for their registration. So Guys, that's it for me today. Thank you for the opportunity. Look forward to what you guys have in mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. I'm trying to mute all these guys that suddenly start making noises in between here. Any case, so any questions?
Is it not from Chris's office?
Any questions from anybody for Adrian? Okay, in that case, I'm going to go and share the presentation. Okay, Chris, you can fire away. I see Chris has left his chair for a moment. I don't know where he is. Chris, ons wag vir jou, jong. He's had some connectivity issues before, so it could be that. I think it is his problem. Meanwhile, if any of you want to have anything specifically discussed about ECSA registration, please say so. Let me know, or say so now, or something. Let's give Chris a bit of time.
Johan, can you hear me?
Yes, you.
I'm battling with my connection.
Oh, we can hear you.
I've got a very unstable connection. I just want to try and use the other connection because I'm using a satellite and it's very unstable. So I'll be using another connection.
Okay, we give you 2 minutes.
Okay, if you don't mind.
For those of you who don't know, Chris sits on a site out there at Marble Hall somewhere. So he doesn't have the fancy equipment that some of us have access to. He's sitting in the site office that he said it was 30-something degrees there, 34 degrees or what. And so, yes, looks like the heat is affecting his equipment there as well. Chris, are you back with us?
Can you hear me now?
I see you back with us, so we can hear you, yes.
Okay, no, sorry about that. It's to do with the satellite connection here because I find that it's very unstable many times and we're online and then we go offline. So I just went onto my own cell C line and it's working better now. All right, we're going to go to the registration of professional engineering technologists at ECSA Group B. I'm going to discuss that. Everybody knows me by now, so I'm not going to introduce myself. Let's just go to the first slide, Johan. Okay. Before we go to Group B, we just recap on the discussion held on Group A 2 weeks ago. So that consists of engineering reports. It's Form B23ER, that's for recognized qualification, and Form B18 EDR is the educational development report. Now the qualifications required for Form B23ER is a BTech Eng, B-Eng Tech, Advanced Diploma in Engineering, also a Sydney Accord recognized qualification. And if you've got a foreign qualification, then you can get ECSA to process, to evaluate or assess your foreign qualifications. The alternative route is for Form B18 EDR, Educational Development Report. What we're going to concentrate now on is more just on the recognized qualification on the Form B23ER. Okay. The presentation is based on the engineering report B23R. Group A is the knowledge-based engineering problem-solving section. There are 3 outcomes that are to be achieved in this group as discussed previously. Now, Group B is known as a managing broadly defined engineering activities. There are only 2 outcomes in this group. Outcome 4, managing a broadly defined engineering activity. Usually that is your project management. Outcome 5 is communication with others during the engineering activity, and that's where Adrian's talk came in about networking. Okay. Now we're going to go to performance requirements for outcome 4. Performance requirements for outcome 4 is the management skills for broadly defined engineering activity, which is basically your project management. Now, competency to be demonstrated there is, how do you manage yourself? Please note, manage yourself, manage people, manage work priorities, and manage processes of a broadly defined engineering activity. How do you do that? Secondly, evidence provided for planning, organizing, leading, and the ability to control the broadly defined engineering activity. And thirdly, how do you establish and maintain a professional and business relationship with your clients, contractors, or consultants? How do you maintain that? So in a nutshell, how do you actually manage, plan, and maintain professional and business relationships during an identified, broadly defined engineering activity? Now we're going to go to outcome 5. Let me just cover that. Now, your performance requirements for outcome 5, that is your communication skills for a broadly defined engineering activity. Competency to be demonstrated. How do you write a technical report that is concise, effectively, legally, and editorially correct? So that is your report writing. Secondly, how do you get a clear instructions to various stakeholders, and what format do you use? Usually that's your site instruction, your request for information. How do you go about that? And thirdly is, how do you do presentations, and what appropriate formats do you use for your audience when presenting a broadly defined engineering activity? So it means what programs are you using, what format you're using, what do you do, what backup systems you've got there. If you're with ESCOM nowadays that we get power and load shedding, how do you go about with your presentation? You just sit there and say, no, I can't carry on. You carry on. How do you do your backup system there? In summary, how do you communicate with others, and what platforms and styles do you use for your communications for a broadly defined engineering activity? So these are the 2 that there. Now we're going to summarize outcomes 4 and 5. Outcome 4 and 5 consists of managing skills and communication skills for a broadly defined engineering activity. Outcomes 4 and 5 interlink with each other. Outcome 4 is the planning, leading, implementing, and controlling of broadly defined engineering activity, while outcome 5 is your communication skills of a broadly defined engineering activity to various audiences consisting of supervisors, peers, subordinates, other disciplines, clients, stakeholders communicated, and it must be reliable, and you maybe have to repeat it regularly. So that is where your networking comes in, as what Adrian discussed. So the acknowledgement, the presentation is based on the Engineering Council of South Africa ECSA documents, RO2 ST, PE, PT, PCE, and PN. competency standards for registration in professional categories as PEPT, PCE, PN Revision 1, 20th August, table number 7. Okay, and then R03 PRO, processing of applications for registration of candidates and professionals, revision 2, 29th of January 2019. And then also your engineering technologist guide to the completion of registration application form. And thank you. And if there's any questions, we can take them on now. I know it's a very short presentation, but usually the guys battle with this. Okay, any questions?
Chris, thank you for that again. I just wanted to, I know you've covered it before, but just for the sake of clarity, the differences of those different types of problems. You got the clearly defined problem and you got the broadly defined. There's certain categories. How does ECSA view those things? Are they quite important to differentiate between them?
You mean for technician and technologist?
Yeah, and then
okay,
also
technician
PRN.
is a well-defined engineering activity, which is basically the person uses guidelines, and that's all. They don't actually go out of the guidelines that are given to them. They stay legally in that, and they don't do much of engineering and judgment in that sense. Where broadly defined engineering activity is you taking the full responsibility of your design, you're using guidelines, plus you're going out of those guidelines using your engineering judgment to see if it is correct. Because the guidelines are only there as guidelines. It doesn't mean it's cast into stone. So you actually think out of the box. Not that I say a lot of technicians aren't doing that. There are technicians doing that.
And Chris, the PRNs, thanks for that. And the PRNs guys, what would the difference be between them and the technologists in terms of solving problems?
They're using also the guidelines, but they're doing complex. They call it a complex, but there's a very, very fine line between the two if you're taking your years of experience into consideration there. Because there's a lot of technologists that are actually working at the level of the professional engineer already. Because we are the only group of people that actually gets, with the professional engineer and the professional technologist gets public liability insurance. So we take responsibility of our designs.
That's
great. Thanks a lot.
Jan wants to come in. Come in, Jan.
And Chris, I wanted to suggest one thing. You are doing a great job, but why you don't include technician also? ECSA registration, technologists and technician, because more or less same outcome, only well-defined and broadly defined, because so many people are aspiring for professional technician. So just include it. ECSA registration for technician and technologists. So people who are trying to get registered as a technician, they can also join.
Yes.
So same outcome 11.
Okay, the outcomes is similar, but it's not. And also, this presentation, what we decided, we will only do technologists here for the moment, because this is what IPET stands for. So the Institute of Professional Technologists. And
no, but time to time you are telling about well-defined and broadly defined. So good idea, consider add technicians also, because so many people, I am mentoring a number of candidates. They are the BTech graduates, but they are placed as a technician. They are not doing broadly defined work. So I have suggested them to apply for PR technician in spite of BTech Civil.
Yes.
They have completed 3 years. but mostly planning and design, no construction, and is a well-defined work they are doing. So just consider and discuss the people. Good idea
Yes.
to include technicians also. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
registration.
I'll do that. I just want to finish the technologist one, and then we
Okay.
can do the technician one too, with the
And
technician.
second
Otherwise, if
thing,
you mix it together, then they get a problem with the people. And another thing too, although I'm a professional technician, I do not, I did not apply at ECSA to become, as assessor for technician, because it gets to a line where it's very, very fine, and you can't define it in the end. I've seen that happen. So I'd rather stay with the technologists as the assessor. There are people that do the two, but I preferably would not like to do that. But I understand what your position is. If you remember, I spoke about mentorship about
yeah,
4 weeks ago, Dr. Senna. And I
yeah,
said
yeah.
there it was defined how to do assessment. The students, or I mean the applicant, must do an honest assessment of themselves to see if they are on the level of a broadly defined engineering activity. If they're not and they want to, they must go and talk to the employer about that.
One of the problems that we find in practice nowadays is that the politicians have taken over jobs like town engineer that used to be done by town engineers and things like that, that needed strategic planning and all that kind of thing, which was done by as I said, by professional engineers. So now that a lot of professional engineers are doing work that's actually broadly defined, and they tend to think, because they think that is now engineers' work, which it is as well. I mean, an professional engineer can do broadly defined work. But then now they think that a technologist is just a senior technician. And that is a problem that we sit with, and it's not easy to explain to people that it's not the fact. The fact that we now have these definitions of broadly defined and undefined and well-defined, that helps to some extent, but those definitions are open to interpretation as well. So I appreciate that is a problem, and that you guys out there in practice, of which I'm not there anymore, have to face on a daily basis. In any case, there must be some questions there. I don't see anybody wanting to talk. Unmute yourself if you have a question and ask your question.
And second thing, Chris, outcome 5 is a communication. Because for the time being and last few days also, when I see the application, I am doing assessment for the professional engineer because being a PRN. So whenever it comes outcome 5, I gave a remark in the comments that it should be probed during EA interview, because it is very difficult to assess their spoken English and presentation, verbal presentation. You're writing a report and things like this, but verbally how they speak, their language skills and everything. So mostly I always make a remark to be probed during EA interview. This I used to do.
Yes, no, that is correct. Another thing too is when they doing the applicant is completing the form. If you see the outcome 5, what it discussed there, how do you interact with different disciplines? How do you keep a professional relationship? If you're a contractor, how do you do it with the consultants? How do you keep it with your people working under you? That is skills that you can write about, but when you get asked about it, you must know what you're talking about. Because I find a lot of people, they just write down, but then when you ask them, for instance, site instruction, what does it consist of? They write down about a site instruction, but when they're asked how to describe it, they can't. You know, what does it consist of? If you're doing a report and you say you're doing a technical report or you're doing a preliminary design report, what are the headings? These are things that people must understand, that what they write, they must tell that they understand what they're doing there. And communicating. When you're doing your presentation, as you said there, that is also a form of communication. We look at your presentation, see how you communicate across. Do you know what you're talking about? Are you confident in your presentation? That's why you get about 15 minutes for your professional review to present your work, what you've done, and how you do it. And that is communication. Then we also want to see, how do you interact with different disciplines? Because a lot of people think, I'm just doing one field and that's it, I don't need to talk to the other. Strictly speaking, nobody does that. Nobody works on their own. Everybody works together. How do you get across to the different fields of engineering or your client or your developer? How do you communicate with them? That is the communication. And a lot of people don't understand that. And I've picked that up.
Okay. And second thing, Adrian just asked about broadly defined and complex problems. You know, I remember when I was in the department, Water Affairs, so those who are PR Tech that time, they used to promote it up to control technician, good top salary. And those who are engineers, they can go even chief engineers. So there was a big conflict that during my time, salary, that his salary as a chief engineer, my salary as a control technician, why so different? Then my chief director was Peter Panikkar and director was Dr. Jordan, late Jordan. You may be knowing them definitely. So they suggested you are doing broadly defined and we are doing complex solving. So in complex, there is a research embedded in that because broadly defined doesn't have much research, but in complex, we do research also. Like impact of climate change after 10 years, 20 years, how the dam water will go. So for the broadly defined, they just operate, see the dam level and everything. But during complex, we used to analyze climate impact after 20 years, how the dam will behave. But that was their concept. So we used to follow as about this. Okay,
You see, what I'm saying is after many years, the person with BTech and the person with the PR Eng and the PR Tech technologist, we end up getting on the same level. You know, we're not stuck in one route. But as I said, complex is, they define, as they defined it in the engineering, you do new techniques and advanced calculations, as they say. But technologists that broadly defined is you do calculations and you follow the guidelines and you use engineering judgment. But in the end, after many years of working, you also do those complex calculations in that. And you also do your analyzing of everything. So it becomes very fine line there.
Yeah. You are very right.
Guys, can we please give the other guys some opportunity to ask questions as well?
Okay.
Sorry, Johan. I missed a bit of the presentation. Will it be available? Will you send it around?
Yeah, it will be available.
Okay, great. Thanks.
To put all these presentations on our new website as well. So in the new year, but I haven't gotten around to send all this stuff to everybody, but we need to arrange to have a link where you can just access it.
Yes, thanks. I'd be interested.
I'm just getting my temperature measured. We have to do it because of COVID in the morning and then 12 o'clock. But anyway, So any questions, it's basically your 4 and 5 is your communications and project management, how you manage people, how you do. And a lot of people think you have to have site experience, but many times it's not just site experience. You can also how you manage your office, how do you manage your people at the office, how do you plan your work? That counts also. And how do you do
There
your
must be some more
instructions to the
questions.
people?
There must
Hello?
be some more questions. Yes.
Hi. Okay, I just have a question. I pulled out my application form. I think it's the older version, E1.1. So I know we're talking about outcome 4 and 5. So with the first bullet on how you manage yourself, I was wondering if maybe you can state an example of what you might perhaps write about how you manage your actual self. And also with the
Okay, I
third
can just want to
on
give you
outcome.
that one hint there, Erica. If you
Okay.
want to say, the first thing is there, how do you manage yourself? I'm going to ask you, think about it. How do you keep your appointments? I know you, a lady, likes to have your nails painted and that. How do you know you have to go, or you just pitch up there for your appointment? How do you remember that?
You schedule it, and hopefully you have on your Outlook email, you can schedule it there as well, even on your Google calendar. So that's
Okay.
the way I would possibly schedule an
So you've
appointment.
already answered the question. Why are you asking it? If I may ask.
So you do
You understand what I'm saying?
So I'm just
You know
trying
what,
to make sure.
what I must just say to everybody, you know, when people look at these forms, sometimes they make it into a situation where it gets very blown out of what it should not be. You know, look at the answer, look at the question, look at your keywords. Like, how do you manage yourself? You correctly answered, you schedule it, you've got a diary, you've got things. That's what you answer. And another thing too is there's one question, you know, you look at the keywords like confirm, how, that, and you look at those are the words that you look at. If it says, do you confirm that you are abiding by the rules of ECSA and ECSA's code of conduct, you don't have to write a big story. You can just say yes or no. That's it. That's the answer. Sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's long answers. But you understand what I'm saying, Erica. Come in with your second question.
Also on the third point of maintaining a professional and business relationship, is that as simple as writing that you communicate via email? And I also don't really understand that point.
Okay, how do you maintain? Let's say an example, you're going to site, and you see the contractor there and he does something wrong. What do you do to him? You go to the car, you pick up your baseball bat and you hit him in the head. That's not a professional method. So you right there, how do you do? Think about situations that you've picked up. If he does not do what you want to do, how do you go about it? You don't become violent. You actually, as you said, you write an email. What do you do? Follow up. If you give a verbal instruction, how do you follow it up? Those are the things how you maintain your professional relationship with him. And if he wants to bribe you, how do you go about that? You understand what I'm saying, Erica?
Yes, I do. It just sounds it sounds good and simple in that way. I'm just thinking hopefully it doesn't become repetitive, because I'm thinking outcome 4 and outcome 5, they seem like they kind of work together.
They
So
are
I'm hoping not to be
interlinked together.
repetitive.
No, they are together. They are interlinking. Basically, your outcome 4 is basically your project management that you're doing. And outcome 5 is your communication skills of how you're going about that.
Also, if you talk to the contractor on site, as Chris said, how do you go about it? You say to him, you see this problem there, and then you listen to his side of the story. You know, you need to just say, you listen to his side of the story, get the full picture, and also ask any other people that are connected in the problem for their opinion and what happened, so that you can get a full picture of the problem situation before you make any judgments. That is the type of thing you want to write down in very short, you know, in a short version there.
Okay, thank you very much. I understand.
Well, have you done some site experience, Erika, if I may ask?
Yes, I have. I have a few projects that I've done on site.
And how did the contractors, you do civil or do you electrical or mechanical?
I do mechanical.
Okay, do you do shopping centers or what?
Oh, sorry, we do refurbishments mostly in hospitals and clinics. So we're looking at your HVACs and your drainage.
Yeah, and that is
cold
hairy,
water.
hey? It's hairy sometimes.
It is.
And then you got your poor. I want to ask you. You say you work with those. Now, if you're working with other disciplines, how do you go about working with them? That's how you have to answer your questions there.
Oh, okay.
You understand? So that's where
Yes,
the interlinking comes, and that's where Adrian came in. You were there in the beginning. He was talking about networking. Actually, his talk tied up nicely with this presentation today. Is how do you network with the people? How do you maintain a professional relationship? I know there are a lot of people that really, when you see them, you really don't want to work with them, but you have to. So how do you maintain that relationship with them? How do you maintain the respect for them, although they can become very, very bad? And you've had that experience, it sounds like it too.
A lot of it has to do with how you address people. You know, I have a person I used to work with at the University of Johannesburg, a lady who was in a leadership position, and she used to always address everybody as colleague, and that immediately kept a professional distance, and you know, so to keep that professional distance, especially for ladies, is not always that easy, because some guys can be very intrusive in your personal space and try things with you, you know, and you have to be able to handle that, which is quite an art. I take off my hat for some ladies, the way they do it sometimes. I've seen some very, very good examples of ladies keeping the guys just at arm's length without belittling them or something like that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, hopefully we answered all your questions, Erika.
Any other questions, please? If you have a question, unmute yourself and ask. You've got the opportunity now. Osima?
Yeah, I'm just asking, maybe after 10 years or 15 years, there will be no professional technician. Now we are only started BTech, phasing out BET, advanced diploma. So there will be no professional technician because the national diploma is phasing out. Only in few universities we have introduced diploma. Otherwise, national diploma is mostly gone. In TUT and other universities, we have started just BET, no diploma. So there will be shortage of professional technician until and unless these occupational colleges, they don't start. Yeah, if they start, they can be registered as an occupational technician like this. Yeah, but it will be a problem after 10 years. There will be no PR technician in the country. Yeah.
Dr. Sina, I just want to say I don't agree with you. There will always be technicians, there will always be technologists, there will always be professional engineers, there will always be certificated engineers. So there will always be that need for that.
There will
And
be
there
need,
is
but
been
no
provision.
people. There is no diploma courses in most of the university. So number will be very less because my
Not
spacing out.
really. No, it won't be because if you come to, if you look at it this way, the way I see it, and I've always said this, you'll always get one. You'll always get about 10 to 20% of the people that will always want to strive further. A lot of people, when they get to their goal in life, they stay with it. They do not strive further than that because they are satisfied. So it depends on your level of satisfaction of your job that you want to get into.
Also,
So
more
we
and more of
always
the
will have
universities.
technicians, we always will have technologists, and we'll always have professional engineers and certificated engineers. There will always be that, and the need is there for that. And
Most
there
of
are
the
ways and means have been done for that now. And the
most of the
studies there
universities of
is done.
technology are starting to bring in diploma courses again, and they trying to structure the courses so that you can go from a diploma up to the BET level and even higher to a master's level and all that. I see that more and more happening, and I hope that we will, from IPED's side, have early in the new year, have maybe a one-day workshop on this subject where we can get more people from industry to talk about this, and we can get maybe the Department of Education also to enlighten us on how they're thinking, as well as ECSA. That is what we have in mind. So we haven't done anything about it yet. We'll look at that early in the new year.
It's very good idea. I appreciate.
Because I know there are, as Johan said correctly, there are universities of technology that are doing the diploma, or bringing it back in.
TUT
You
is
can
doing
carry
it.
on from diploma to get your to become a technologist, and there you get a bridging course to go into do professional engineering if you want to become one.
Guys, if there's not more any more questions, then we'll end.
There's just one I want to ask Adrian something there. Adrian? Is Adrian, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Adrian, can you just give us an example? I know you work in an environment where people can really, really get you very angry. How do you maintain your professional relationship with them? Because I know you work with the public, am I correct?
That's right, yeah. And yeah, consulting firms.
How do you maintain it? Just give us an example that the guys can understand what we're talking about, professional relationship.
So if somebody has provoked you or is provoking you, and you or someone angry towards you, those kind of situations, is that right?
Yes.
That type of situation. Okay. I think you can get very overwhelmed in those situations, so you have to stay calm. You can't react. As we heard, I have this thought, and maybe someone taught me this, to rather respond. So to initially, one must just be calm and really get to understand why is there this anger, or why is this person behaving like this, and then one can then tackle it then in actually talking to the person or working it through. I've had a couple of situations where it was anger management, but where guys get cross or whatever, but it tends to be when there's a lot of pressure. I won't mention the one project, but it was fairly high level here in the city. And there were a lot of penalties. Per day, it was millions of rands of penalties if you were late. So that creates a lot of pressure, and when you are under pressure, or some I should say, they will try and find ways out of it. To give an example, especially if there's huge penalties, and you could be the person that they target. Because I know this example, I was quite young then. So to try and target me and see if I will break, and that the fault could be found by me, the delays. I don't know if that makes sense now, but one has to just be calm. And on your side, being a professional now, you need to be well organized, document what you do, take notes of everything you're doing, the meetings you go to, the correspondence you get, that so that you've got a good filing system, and that when you are put under pressure, you calm, and then you just reference your notes. If I could use this particular example of what I experienced, and then you say, no, this is what happened on that day, we met on this day, these were the minutes, and you, through facts, deal with it, not through emotions and reacting. You go through it systematically. And then things go very quiet from there. And then I think you've defended yourself professionally. Okay, so that's just an example, maybe where you are that particular example. But if someone's just angry, it can get very difficult. Sometimes you need to not really engage with the person, come back later, and just say we'll talk about this in another day. It just depends. Each situation is very, very different. But the main thing is not to lose it, and still to not give up on people. Because I've had guys that they were so angry about situations, and I didn't give up on that relationship because, as you say, these partnerships are quite important. And I actually walked the road. I'm thinking of someone now, and we've actually got very close because we outworked differences, expectations, because that also comes into it. There's different expectations. And if you work through it with a good attitude, you can actually build through those things, and you can build very, very strong relationships, And I've worked with a lot of civil engineering guys, and I've had some very good relationships, and it wasn't always easy. There's a lot of friction, especially when the stress is there. And so you got to stick it through, and you got to, if I can just end with this, and I'm talking a lot, is that one's reputation is so powerful. You can't buy a reputation. You got to earn it. You got to build it. You got to build that credibility. It's not overnight. And the sad part is you can taint your reputation very quickly if you haven't responded well. You've almost got to restore yourself again. So these things are so important. If you want to get business, you want to get jobs, to build that reputation, build your professionalism. So that's just my rendition from my side. I don't know if that helps.
Okay, thanks, Adrian. Anybody else have questions?
Okay, what are we
Chris.
talking about next?
Yes, Evan.
Yes,
Hi, sorry.
go.
Just a question from my side, or more of a comment. In my form, I registered 2 years ago. I specifically for these two outcomes, I snipped and copied and pasted into my form from other communications. Is that frowned upon, or how is it viewed from ECSA?
What did you do?
It's about communication between different disciplines or different team members. So let's say, for instance, the instructions part, I just snipped, copied a piece out of an instruction and pasted it in there, and just explained a bit about how the instruction came about. But I don't know if that was sort of frowned upon from the assessors.
If it's your work, it's no problem. You understand? If it's your own work, it's no problem. And if you can explain it, that is fine. Because what happens is I do get the guys that, like I said, they put in there of instruction, but when you ask them to explain, tell about the situation, they cannot. Then it's not their work. But if it's your work, it's fine. It's no problem. It doesn't get frowned upon because it just shows that you know what you're doing, you understand what is there. And if you get questioned about it and you answer the questions confidently and not counting your fingers and trying to remember as if you're doing an exam, then it shows that you know what you're doing because it's not being frowned upon there.
I
It's just
found that
to
helped.
identify evidence. If you remember, I said you have to show evidence of what you've done.
That helped, as well as putting in photos of the work, actually. Photos from
Yes.
taken on site.
That is fine. It's no problem. But don't overdo it. You know, you put in 50 photos and think you're going to get your registration. You understand what I'm saying? I do get that from people. You know, if you give one crux photo and say, this is why I wrote the instruction, there is in the photo, and you explain it in your written report, and when you get questioned about it and you can explain it, it's fine. It's allowed. People always think they have to stick with 100 words. Yes, it's a guideline. Remember what I said? It's a guideline. You can go to maybe 200 words on some sections. Some sections is just short answers. Others are longer answers. But if you can confidently explain it, that's fine with the guys. But don't put in 50 pages just for one section of the work. So you don't have to stick to the 100 word rule. If it's going to get the point across and show that it's exactly what you want, it's no problem.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Any other questions?
Yeah, Chris, sometime during assessment, we found that a guy from my brother's country, Zimbabwe and Nigeria, they have 20 years experience. They are applying to get the registration, either PR Tech, PRN. So it becomes a problem. You understand? They have producing 25 TER, training and experience report. They go to the court and get certified that this is their work. So what is your opinion? They should produce 20 TER because they have 25 years experience?
Okay, what they do is, what I tell the guys, the summary and the TER, they must do it from day one. Because that we can see, and we said that last time, I think about 3 lectures ago, is your TER, your experience form. There you can put in what you've done, because I would like to see, as an assessor, is how they developed, did they develop, and how they went about to get their development up to level E. A lot of people, they just put in where they did from BTech, but then it's very difficult to assess the person to see when they were doing while studying and learning, what were they taught and how were they going about it. And you can actually see it nicely if they give it from day one, even if it's 25 years experience. Because when I applied for my registration, I had over 30 years, just under 30 years of experience. But I wrote it down. That helped me to get my registration. And the people could see the fine line. Actually, Johan was one of my interviewers too, that time, many years ago. But it's a good thing to write it down, to see. Because you could see, but for instance, if somebody went into, for instance, they went into the water field and later on they changed over to structural in the last year or two. Then you can see, but he's experienced in water, but he doesn't got that experience in structures.
Abelisa, you've got a question?
Does that answer your question, Dr. Sina?
Abelisa, you have a question? Welcome to talk. You're unmuted. Oh, doesn't look like. Okay.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Jay? Yes.
Good afternoon, Chris. I just came across the term site instruction for the first time. Can you just explain on that, please?
Okay. Have you done any site work? Are you contractor or consultant, or
No,
where do you
I've
work?
done I've done technician work at the same place where Adrian is at the Nelson Mandela
Okay.
Metro. Done some projects, and I had to visit the sites regularly for the contractor also to receive the necessary resources, as well as see how far the project is and foresee when the project will end. It's
Okay,
just
so
that term.
okay, I just want to ask you something there. On what level are you now at the moment? You're working for a council, am I correct?
That's right. I'm actually, I left council and I came back. I'm now actually on the artisan level.
Okay, you're on artisan level. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you go and work for a contractor, or who did you work for before you went?
I was just close to 3 years at the Stellenbosch municipality as the head of operation and maintenance there. And I was involved in projects as well, but the manager was in total control of that. So for big project I was exposed to, and I had to go do site visits as well. For example, a 12 million project where new switchgear was put in the substation. And I had to
I just
follow
want to give
that.
you an example. Can I just come in there, Jay, on an example? For instance, switchgear.
Okay.
You looked at the contract and you saw what type of switchgear that has to be put in. Am I correct?
That's correct, yeah.
All right. You went to inspect to see if the switchgear was correct. It's the
That's
right,
right.
model. It's the right ampage. I'm not electrical. I'm civil, actually. Me and
Okay.
electricity, we work very well. When I'm finished, it's one big Murabi explosion with fireworks. You understand? So the bit I know is a bit dangerous, but I understand. I'm just giving you an example. Now you see the switchgear that they put in is not according to specifications. What do you do?
You have to
Now,
first.
what do you do? Now I tell you, you see it's not right. You've already gone over that hurdle. It's not correct. What do you do about it?
You have to stop the project because the specification you wanted, you see, there was a reason for that.
Yes,
For
I
that,
know, but why you want to? How do you stop it?
you have to call a meeting as well in order to explain that the contractor has gone off track, and there could be issues involved with supply chain as well.
Okay, but I want to ask you now: do you do it verbally, or do you do it with? How do you go?
Do you write an email, or do you write a note to give to the
I want to
person?
ask you that. That's what I want to come to now. You say you have a meeting, but before you have a meeting, what do you tell the contractor? You tell him that is not correct. Am I right?
That's correct, yeah.
So do you just tell him and you walk away, or do you go to the office and write something down?
No, you have. I would prefer going to tell him and then go to the office and write an email explaining why you would like this.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Before you go to your office to write the email, you go to your contractor's site office. Am I right?
Yeah.
So what do you do there? You tell him it's not right, and then you ask him for a book. Am I right?
For the specifications or the tender, the contract.
No. You ask him for a book and you write down that there to say this is not correct. That is a site instruction to say if something is not correct.
Okay.
So when you go to site again, just go into the office and ask for the site instruction book and read it.
Okay. Okay.
It's usually a A4 book. It's triplicate. It's in triplicate, and it's written there. And take note of what's written on the pages, the headings. So I'm going to give you some work to do that you can see and understand.
You see,
Okay.
in the time before emails, every site had a book. Nowadays, I presume you can get away by doing site instructions by email. But the important part of the book was, as Chris said, in triplicate. In other words, there was carbon paper in, and you wrote down there, and you gave an instruction to the contractor or whoever, so that and you said that you found that this was not right, and you say that was what was not right, and you would like it to be fixed in this way, that it's according to this plan or to that, and it has to be done by such and such a period. And then you sign it, and you give a copy to the contractor, and you have a copy yourself, and the one copy stays in the book. That is the way it used to be done. As I said, nowadays with emails, you can write an email, and you can copy it to more people than just 2 or 3 people. But the point is that there must be a record of the instructions that was given to the contractor, where he had to change, maybe had to change a design to some extent to fit in somewhere, or something was not right that he had to rectify, or something. Any instruction that goes to the contractor on the site goes into the site instruction book, or whatever other agreed upon record keeping method is used.
I understand what you're saying is.
Okay. So now,
Okay, because we still on my sites, we use a triplicate booklet as our site instruction book.
Yeah,
Don't
you see,
use emails, because emails tend to disappear very fast.
Yeah, you see, I was never exposed to that. That's why I need clarity on that.
Yeah, that's fine. Because now, what I'm saying is now at least you can see, Jay, you can see there's more involved, and you know what to do now.
Yeah.
And you ask the people on site and learn what they're doing there. Because I know it's very time. Sometimes you feel confined to certain situations and you don't know what's going on, and it's not through you or that. You must try and look and read about everything that you can find about on the subject.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
I remember a situation clearly one day when I'm now talking many years ago. I was still working for railway construction, and we were building some buildings for a new layout in East London. And I wasn't personally involved, but my senior, he put some pegs in for the building, and when he was finished, he saw that somehow these pegs were out of line by a meter. So he wrote in the site instruction book that those pegs, that the building should be built a meter to the side of that, in other words. And it was very clear in the site instruction book. However, the people came there, they saw the pegs and they built the building according to the pegs, and they never looked at the instruction. Then, when this building was like window height, the army comes there and he looks at this and he says, well, why is this thing out of line? And the guy said, no, but we built it according to the pegs. And the technician said, no, but I clearly gave an instruction. He went and he looked in the book and he showed the RE in the book that he gave an instruction that the building should have been built 1 meter to the north or whatever of those pegs. So it was a big problem. And by then the building was too, it was too advanced to break it down. I can't remember what the outcome was, but it was a huge fight.
Yeah.
You can understand how such a thing would now, people would be accusing each other, And that
That's
is why
right,
you
yeah.
have to have the record.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, it's a pleasure, Jay.
Any
other questions?
Okay, guys, in that case, thank you very much. We'll have another one in 2 weeks' time, and I think that should probably be the last one for this year.
That will be outcome, that will be Group C.
Group C,
That we'll
okay.
be discussing, yes.
And yeah, then we take it from there.
Okay.
Have a nice week, and thanks for joining. Thanks for the new faces that we saw today, and the people that I put on a couple of hours ago on the group that was here. I see one of the guys have left now. But in any case, welcome and nice to have you on board, and let's go ahead. It's good to see that the job forum has taken off very well. We're also planning to do an international forum, and it should be, if you guys have international friends that are in the technology field, I would like to know about them so that we can contact them and maybe grow an international forum for technology people. Thank you. Thank you and goodbye. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks, Johan. Thanks
very
everybody.
much.
Thanks, Adrian. Keep well.
Thanks, Chris. That was great, eh? Thank you.
Okay, it's a
Guys,
pleasure.
keep
Thanks
strong.
a lot.
Keep strong. Keep strong and safe.
Yeah, I have to go now to concrete and inspect. We're casting now some concrete. I told the contractor to wait.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks,
Bye.
Okay, keep well then. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Okay, Johan, ek sal later weer met jou praat.
Okay.
Okay,
Martinez.
Bye. Keep well, everybody.
Thanks, Jay.
Cheers.
Thanks for an interesting question.
Bye. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, I'm going to end. I'm just going to switch off the meeting. Thank you. Bye.